Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about some properties of rhombuses, specifically their diagonals. Okay, so if we look here on the left, we see the two diagonals of the rhombus, and note that we see this right angle box here. Okay, so they intersect at a 90-degree angle, which is a right angle. Okay, so that's one thing we need to know. And then also the diagonals, they bisect opposite angles. Okay, and we've seen before that in a rhombus, the opposite angles are, in a parallelogram, the opposite angles are congruent. So we know that once these diagonals bisect the angles, they're still going to create congruent angles, right? So we see these two angles right here are congruent, these are congruent, these two, and those two. Okay, so let's use those two properties. So let's say bisect opposite angles, right? And remember that word bisect? Just like we looked at bisecting a segment, it splits the segment into two equal parts. If we bisect an angle, it splits the angle into two congruent angles. Okay, so let's look at a couple examples where we find some missing angles. So number one, we see we want to find angle 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to start here with angle 1, right? We just looked at that the two diagonals intersect at a 90-degree angle. So we know that angle 1 is equal to 90 degrees. So I'm going to add in a 90 degrees right there. And we see down here that this angle is 51 degrees. Now, keep in mind that these opposite angles, these two angles right here, are congruent since this is a parallelogram. And now we see, okay, since we bisect the angles, that means all of these smaller angles are also equal to each other. So since that angle is 51, angle 3 is also 51. And remember, it's bisecting, so angle 2 is also 51 degrees. So angle 2 and angle 3 are both 51 degrees. And so now we've created, or there's already triangles created here, but we know this is 51 degrees. And so now with this triangle that we see right here, we know that angle 1, 3, and 4 should add up to 180 degrees. So we can do 90 plus 51, and then we can subtract that from 180. So we'll say angle 4 is equal to, and we do 180 minus 1, or 90 plus 51 to get 141. 180 minus 141 would be 39. And that gives us angle 4, okay, 39 degrees. All right, number 2. We see just one diagonal listed here, but remember, all 4 of these angles are going to be the same measure, right? Because they initially are congruent, and then this diagonal just bisects them, so it just splits them in half. So we know that angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4, they're all going to have the same measure. So how do we find that measure? Well, once again, we could think about the fact that we have a triangle right here, and we have been given 70 degrees as one of our angles. So we know that angle 1 and 3 are the same, and plus 70 degrees would equal 180. So if I take 180 and we subtract 70, we are left with 110, right? So that means that angle 1 and angle 3 have to add together to 110, and they're also the same measure. So we just got to divide 110 by 2, and we get 55 degrees. Okay, so all 4 of those angles would be 55 degrees, and that's a little bit about the properties of a rhombus.